Welcome at Ask the Professor. I really enjoy your input and also the real life challenges you uploaded and also the ideas you had. And also our staff is really involved, I think, to give you some feedback as well. And I think this is really the way how we manage and how we can really put in cases from real life to put in this course and to learn from each other, because every country has its own way of thinking and also their own way of solving problems. So I think this is really how we should do it. So great to see this. The most important part now is, of course, the Ask the Professor. I have asked questions from you, so really appreciate it. So let's go and see what I can do for you. There was a question about, is there some free software to use? Because when you need professional software to make this timetabling or operations, what you talk about in this course, of course, that's really an issue, because normally you have a market, and when there is a market, it's a big audience, a big relation with the public in the world. And also we have this here in railways, but not that big, just because of there is not a real market. Except, for example, here in Europe there is no market for that. So that means that the governmental institutions like the rolling stock owners and infra managers, they are more or less in charge to do this. And that's mostly financed automatically by the government. And when it is financed by the government, then you don't have any relationship with the market, or it must be dictated or demanded by this market. And therefore there is no need to make something free, because when you need this kind of devices, when you are working in a business, it's there. And that's make it so complicated. But maybe you find somebody else or other student have an idea where and how to find this kind of software for free. Please upload it and then make a link, and maybe we can use it all. Another question was about the fire brigade engineer. So I really appreciate it. You think about how could we risk or analysis, or when we have problems or fire or safety issues in a tunnel or whatever, how can we make it more efficient and more connected? And that's really the great attitude to thinking in the system engineering part. But the problem here, especially here in Holland, is that we have multiple stakeholders about this risk. So the police, all kinds of things from the criminal departments, for example, when somebody is killed or suicide. All these stakeholders has their own risk program, their own risk process, and they like just to add on all these processes inside the tunnel. And that's it, for a starter, it's great. Then all the risk analysis and processes are there and they are agreed, so why not? But then you have to integrate this, and that's mostly not happened. And therefore we have really problems when there is a risk problem, how to make it really happening, and why not waiting from each other, from other department, other institute, while you need some speed and speeding up to solve the problem, because the show must go on, the train has to go on. And that's exactly what we can gain a lot of time and effort and efficiency. I fully agree about your question, but yeah, the question is how to make this happen. And therefore I also developed this course to think about this integrated approach, the full circle, the full connection, to make it happen in a system engineering approach. And then we get this efficiency and gain more time when we have this kind of problems. Another question was about why does trains make more noise on the bridge than just running on normal track? And I think that's really easy to answer, I think. Because when you drive over a bridge, it's a rigid point. Mostly it's made of concrete or steel. When it is steel, it's like an organ pipe with the air floating in. Then you have really a high volume coming out, because it is resounding and echoing a lot. That's also with concrete. Even when you don't think it's echoing, it is, because all the vibrations and the waves going in, it can freely radiate the energy out of the construction. And that's exactly the answer, because when you are just on the soil and the waves and energy goes in the soil, it will damping out and phasing out very quickly, because all the energy is absorbing by this soil. And that's also the real answer why you have this difference in noise. There was a question about investments, strategic investments, and who is doing what in regarding the way of stakeholders and how these processes really run. So when the government says, okay, we need to have an ETMS investment, a strategic investment for the long term, then a lot of money is related to that. Also, how to do it. And that's the question how in Holland is getting transferred to Prodel and NS, so the infra manager and the infra and the rolling stock owner, to make a plan, to make scenarios how to do this and how to make this happen. So the government is saying, I need something, then these two parties, rolling stock owner and the infra manager here in Holland, are doing a job to make the scenarios and plans, and then it's going back to the government to say yes or no for these plans. That's how it works here in Holland. But when you look, for example, in America, in the USA, it's private company, then everything and all the decisions are made and organized as a normal company. So that's not an one answer suits all. It's about what's the situation in which country, how it is related, how it is organized, and that makes how things are running as it is. So in Holland I explained, other countries, be my guest and explain. Maybe you can upload that. The next question, also the last question for today, was about, okay, when we have some yards or layouts or other things, or single track, why this will stay for long term and why people design this. And mostly you have to go back far beyond in the history to see why these decisions were made. For example, in Holland, you talk about Haarlem. That's when we start with railways, we had a lot of companies, real private-owned companies, to starting up with the railway business. And that means that we have different goals, also different connections, and not an integral connection in Holland, for example. And that's also based on the history. But when you have yards, but also when you can park your trains for washing or whatever, or just parking because of the night, then there's also a reason why it was on that spot. Mostly because you need space, so therefore you need an empty area in the past on that city, for example. But also the harbors, they have other needs in the history than now. Like in Amsterdam, the harbors are not that needing that high transport capacity of freight wagons as in the past. So, but the old design of the harbor is like the old way, and a lot of connections are also connected to the station, central station of Amsterdam, but not needed anymore, but maybe 1 or 2 trains per day. So everything is shifting, but when you lay down the infra and the assets, you cannot change it that easily. It costs a lot of money, and why change it while it is still there? So a lot of choices coming from the back, still there because the life cycle is not finished, and why you make this different or change it while it is still there and still needed, maybe in a different way, but that will coming up in the next revision where you do some maintenance or renewal of the track. That's the moment you can say, okay, I change or do something else. So please think over when you have this in mind, that when you make a new story or a new specification of how to make things happen, or a double track, for example, then you need this kind of milestones to make it happen. Otherwise, I think you have no chance. But that's the case in Holland. Maybe somebody else can upload the way how they do it in their country. I will be very eager to know how it works. So be my guest. Many thanks for all these nice questions. I really enjoyed. Hopefully you did as well. When you have more ideas, please upload your ideas. Involve our staff as well. Upload your cases. Talk with each other. That's what we like. And also for the next Ask the Professor, you're really welcome to upload your ideas, your questions to me. Maybe I can give some new light or information to you. So feel free and keep on track.